The opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and Your Sports Network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Tuesday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you as always by our good friends. You can find them everywhere. They're above our heads or in the top right corner of the screen. Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig, Scotty Minter with you. Scotty, it's Wednesday. It's winter sports. You know what that means, buddy. You know what that means. It is episode 1, season 3. We've been renewed, and we feel so blessed. Gary Altizer, Wrestling Wednesdays continues with big old Gary down there in Wellsville. Gary, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
Can you hear us?
I can't believe it's already time
Okay.
for wrestling season, and we're on the swing of things. And I'm glad to be back for season 3 of Wrestling Wednesday.
Yeah, season 3, we got renewed for a new season. Gary, one of the things that's so exciting is I think our wrestling coverage is going to get even better this year. We have more broadcasts on the schedule. How excited are you to see just more and more attention be put out to I know the sport that you love the most?
Oh, it's so exciting to see. It's so great to see. And I think that the more that these kind of opportunities come up, the more the general public is going to be aware of big matches that are going on. Obviously, wrestling is big in this area, but I think a lot of times people miss when the big matches are because they're not ever broadcast. They're not streamed, anything like that. I think this is great. I think that this will really get the ball rolling, and I think that everybody will be surprised at the interest it gets.
Yeah, and our first wrestling broadcast of the season, I think, is next week. Looking at our spreadsheet, I think I saw wrestling somewhere. Maybe it's in 2 weeks. Gary, when's your first wrestling match? Let's talk about Wellsville a little bit. And obviously, you're the coach at Wellsville. We love to give you the time to have a little coach's corner yourself. Let's talk about the Tigers and what you were bringing to the year this year.
Oh, well, thanks for asking. This December 9th is the first Saturday of the season, so that will be the first weekend of tournaments that you'll see. Obviously, we're a small Division III school. We're the 7th smallest public school in the state of Ohio that offers wrestling. So we'll be going to the Malvern tournament, which is a tournament full of schools our size. That's where we'll start. I only have 2 seniors on the team. Unfortunately, my best returning wrestler broke his foot in football season, so I'm hoping to get him back sometime at the end of January. But the bright side is I do have a big roster. I have 17 names down right now, and if they hold, if they all come through and get their alpha, which is tonight, if you get your alpha, your hydration test, you are officially on the roster. That will be the biggest roster that I've ever had. So I feel blessed that I have a lot coming up, but we are very green this year. I have a lot of first-year kids and a lot of freshmen coming up, but I have a big 8th grade class as well. So I think the future is going to be kind to us. We're just going to have to take our lumps to get our experience in here in the next year or two. But the kids are putting in great effort. They all have great attitudes, and I still have a lot of guys with me to coach that I really trust. So I'm excited to see what happens. This is year 9 for me. And I never thought I'd be a head coach to start with, let alone almost a decade in.
I found it. Our first wrestling broadcast is a week from tomorrow. I was thinking a week from today. That's why I was thrown off. But Thursday, December 7th, Chris Colucci going to be in South Range for a dual meet between Southeast and South Range. So that'll be our first wrestling broadcast of the season, Thursday, December 7th. That's why we brought Gary on this week to preview the whole wrestling season. But we're talking about Wellsville first because he is obviously the coach over at Wellsville. Gary, one of the other things we always talk about for our coaches' corners, especially season previews, the schedule. Obviously, that EOAC is going to give you a lot of dual meets, but you also have tournaments that you're going to be in. Talk about the schedule this year and what things pop up for Wellsville and what you're excited about it.
Something different now is that the state of Ohio, they used to require that you had a certain amount of dual meets on your schedule. So the way it works in wrestling is every event that you go to as a high school team has a number of points assigned to it. You get 20 points throughout the season. And what it used to be was 4 of those points had to be dedicated to duels in whatever fashion, whether it was just a duel, a try, a quad, something like that. They had to delegate 4 points towards that. Of course, you could use more, but they wanted schools to get more into the one-on-one kind of atmosphere. Well, they did away with that. So now you can use all 20 points however you want, and you can use them all for tournaments if you want. So personally for us, because I have such a green team, a team that, needs the time on the mat, we're going to a lot more tournaments this season to get the mat time that we need, to catch up for some of the inexperience that we have. I think this is a great move for the OHSAA. I understand what they were trying to do to build rivalries. I mean, rivalries build excitement, excitement builds numbers, and numbers build programs. But at the same time, if you're forcing schools who maybe wrestling is new to them or they're in rebuild mode and there's a new coach coming in and getting kids to come out, sometimes it isn't easy. Sometimes it takes some time. And I don't think people understand. We've talked about this several times on here over the last few years. It is very hard to fill 14 weight classes to get kids out, to get 14 kids out. It's not always easy, especially if you're a small school. And then to have them all weigh different is also very challenging. I think I have 5 kids that weigh within 2 pounds of each other right now on my team. Now, if you're a bigger school, if you're a Division I school, you've probably got 35, 40 kids on your team. You can fill out, a full team. If you're a school like my size where I've got 50 boys and girls per grade in the school, and then I've got to compete with a very good basketball program, probably one of the best bowling programs in the area, it's tough to do. So I understand what the state was trying to do, but given the freedom for coaches to determine what's best for them, I think is the way to go. So we'll be going to a lot of tournaments this year.
It's funny that you bring up trying to build rivalries, because one of the things I noticed last year we did a great job of bringing a lot of wrestlers on, and I think we asked most of them about rivalries, and not one of them said a specific team. It was more one wrestler, this guy on this team. And those get built through the tournaments. Like you can still meet up a wrestler that is on one of your rival teams, and you build those individual rivals. And I think that's what makes wrestling really good, is it's more of this guy one-on-one is my rival. I don't get geared up just because he's on this team. I get geared up because he's just been my rival throughout my whole high school career. So I think that's how you build rivalries in wrestling, and it's a unique sport in that way.
That's exactly right. That's a great point. When the fans come to a match, it's usually because they want to see 2 kids go at it with each other. It's almost always you've got this state ranked guy, this state ranked guy, this state placer, that state placer, this state champ, whatever. Not that there aren't schools that don't have rivalries. Of course there are. I mean, but those are usually just the best schools in the state where that comes in. It's definitely more, it is an individual sport as far as getting out on the mat. There are obviously a big team part of that. But if you've got 2 kids that are highly touted, highly recruited, highly ranked, and they're going at it, you're going to draw people in just for that 1 6-minute match.
So back to just talking about Wellsville a little bit more. I know your roster is not officially set without those alphas getting in. So I won't ask you to, go through your roster. We can do that next week. Remind me, and I'll have you go through the official Wellsville roster, and you can shout out the names that'll be on your team, because I want to give them some love. But let's talk about your staff and the people that have been helping you and the people that are obviously behind the scenes helping Wellsville wrestling be what it is.
So my junior high head coach, his name's Nate Ketchum. He's an East Liverpool graduate. I think this is the 6th year he's been with me. He's been a really, really big help. He's a younger guy that's getting a lot of experience in. He's a former military guy. He's a guy that I trust. I trust him like I would trust my family. That's why I have the guy on there. The kids like him, and he brings a real different feel of things to the wrestling room. He demands a lot out of the kids, but the kids also really respect him because they do anything for them. I also have a younger guy, Tommy Redmond. He's a substitute teacher at the high school, and he also was a football and track coach with us. He's done a great job of talking to kids about wrestling, telling them about the team. He's got several new kids to come out for the team. And then I have a kid that I coached for 6 years, Jake McNamara. He's coming on as an assistant this year. He graduated 3 years ago. He was on that team that we had where we set our school record for the most dual wins in a season. We had a really good year that year. He's coming on. He really wants to dig deep in the wrestling, and I think that his future, he's going to be in coaching for a very long time.
Way back in season 1,
Yes.
He's an OG. Scotty, what questions do you want to ask Gary about his squad?
Yeah. So Gary, first of all, it's good to have you back.
You too.
And second, I just wanted to know, you talked a lot about your roster being green this year and having a very young team. So first off, I wanted to know, we know, and you talked about getting the reps on the mat, and that's the most important thing. It's such a physical thing. From a physical perspective, I think that you always want to get as many reps as possible. But my question is for you, Gary, mentally, because you have such a young team, do you try to instill things into them mentally wise? Like, do you have a certain philosophy of, because the mental part plays a factor too. So how do you want your guys thinking about things mentally? Do you think there's any advantage? You talked about the disadvantages, but do you think there's any advantages to having a young team?
Well, the advantages are, of course, the future. The advantages are that they don't have bad habits yet, that they are an open book and hopefully a sponge. Those are the advantages for sure. I've been blessed. If you get guys in, if they coming out for the team as 7th graders or 9th graders for wrestling, that's extremely late, but it's by no means too late. So I had a couple of wrestlers who came out as freshmen, and they're both graduated now. They both went over 100 wins. They both were OVAC placers, high OVAC placers. They were both high EOWL placers. They were both state qualifiers. One was a qualifier, one was an alternate. They were awesome. So it's not too late. And like I said, the good thing is you get them in, you can teach them the right way at a later age, as freshmen, as they're, 14 years old, 15 years old, where they should be picking things up quicker. And if they want to learn at that age and they want to put in the effort, they'll get results. And that's what those two did. Jason Tice and Caden Weekly are the two that I'm talking about, two of the foundational guys I had on two of my best teams, that I had as I've coached. Having guys like that is great. You're not always going to get that, though. Those aren't common. You're not going to get guys to come out as freshmen and pick it up as quick as they did. They are special cases, but they're not the only ones that I've had come out as freshmen and do well. I would say mentally, the main thing that I try to do with my guys, especially my new guys or my young guys, is tell them to relax. It's a very personal sport. It is you and another guy in a physical. You're in a physical match in front of a bunch of people in a gym. The eyes are all on you. The nerves can get to you immediately. And if you can't relax, you're not going to perform anywhere close to your potential. So the biggest thing that I try to tell them is, hey, don't worry about it. No matter what happens, it's okay. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. What matters is that you go out there, you give 100%, and you do the things that we've talked about. If you win, it's great. If you don't, we'll learn from it and we'll move on, but don't get too worked up. It's not a big deal at the end of the day. And then 20 years from now, you're probably not even going to remember this match, and it's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. What's going to matter is the things that you learn in the wrestling room and on the wrestling mat, which is self-reliance, grit, problem solving, doing things you don't want to do when you're exhausted. Those are the life lessons that when you're an adult, as you go on in life, that are going to help you. And the outcome of this match, whatever the score is, it really doesn't matter.
Gary, let's start to broaden our wrestling talk and talk about all the schools in the YSN family. Obviously, we can't do anything without talking about the returning state champions. I mean, Garfield's coming back. Keegan Sell had a great football season. He won state last year for Garfield, their first state champion in wrestling. How do you come back from a season like that? How do you try to stay hungry? We saw Louisville bring back a state champion last year. He couldn't quite repeat, but he was still just as good. So how do you kind of come back the next year and try to keep raising that bar as a state champion?
You have to dig deep, and you have to dig even deeper because everybody knew you were good the year. You don't become a state champion overnight. So, Keegan Sell, I've been watching him, wrestle his whole high school career. He wrestles in our sectional in our region. It was no surprise that he turned out to be a state champion because he was at that level. Well, now he's got an even bigger target on his back throughout the state because everybody, when they go back and look at those brackets from last year, they're going to see that he stood at the top. He's just going to have to dig deeper and realize that he is going to have a target on his back, and he's going to get everybody's best. I know that he had a really good football season. He had a long football season, so he's even getting started late into the wrestling room. But I don't know that it will matter much for a kid like him with the kind of talent that he has. He's a brute strong kid. I think that he'll just have to keep his sights set on repeating because, look, there have been a lot of state champions. Well, you can cut that number. I'd say probably, 10% of them repeated maybe. I don't know. That's just a number off the top of my head. But being a state champ is such a great feat that hardly anybody has ever done in the grand scheme of things when you think about wrestling as a whole. And to repeat, you got way less people to do that. So keeping his eye on that and accomplishing that kind of a goal in that feat, doing something that almost no one has done. And if him and Hunter Andel are the two first state champions, they've obviously never had a repeat state champion at that school. So he should keep his eyes on that.
Yeah, it would actually be awesome. We have a comment, Jason Roberts, on the Facebook saying, just get better every day as an athlete. That's all you can do, right? I mean, that's a great add-on to what Gary was saying about, not taking the wins and losses too seriously. At this level, we love to win. Obviously, we're here to compete. We don't believe in moral victories per se, but we also know that, it's not like, some of the big college sports we like to watch on TV where your job is based on, hey, how many wins did you get? Hey, did you beat Michigan? Did you beat Ohio State? Well, if you didn't, get the heck out of here. There's not that kind of pressure put on winning or losing, at least for most high school coaches and athletes, which is a good thing, I think, for mental health of 15 through 18-year-olds. Gary,
Right.
when we talk about wrestling, we just talked about state champions repeating. We had a couple of really impressive freshmen last year coming back for their sophomore year. In that sense, there's more tape on you. Now you're not a surprise. There's more film. People know a little bit more about what you do, what you can't do, maybe what your weaknesses are. How do you come back from a really impressive freshman year, do you think?
Well, I mean, you know the old saying, you want to avoid the sophomore slump. So if you come out on fire as a freshman, a freshman in this sport especially can really do well because they're coming out of nowhere. Nobody's really thinking about the eighth grader the prior year. Nobody's thinking about that kid. And a lot of eighth graders who are serious about the sport, they'll travel the country, they'll wrestle in open tournaments and wrestle high school kids in the off season. And they'll go to clubs in the evenings and on the weekends where they're wrestling these state level guys, and they'll come into the season with a bang, and they'll really be something that seniors, juniors have to deal with. This isn't just a regular freshman. So if you come out and you have a great season like that, you have to just don't rest on that. don't let your head get too big. Don't think that just because you did well your freshman year that you're owed anything your sophomore year. You're going to have a bigger target on your back, and nobody is going to just lay down for you. If they know that you're good and that they're going to have to be up for the match, they're all going to be up. They're all going to be ready for you, and you're not going to be surprising anyone.
All right, let's talk about some teams that you're looking at this year. I mean, obviously, I think there are those blue blood programs that are always kind of good at YSN. Well, who are some teams that you're thinking, man, they can really do something special this year?
Well, as I was looking through the rankings, it's really a lot of the same teams that we've always talked about that are going to do well. I know that Hoban program has got a couple of really nice upper weights. They're going to be a team to really make some noise this year. They got a freshman, I believe, at 215. Yes, last name was Feister. He's ranked number 3 in the state. For a freshman at that weight, that's really saying something. I'm just someone I've been thinking about there. Beaver Local has a really good team. They're full of a lot of young guys. They have a freshman that's ranked 6th in the state. And they've obviously got Buhite coming back. He had an amazing freshman year. He's ranked in the top 4. They've got 5 or 6 guys ranked, predicted to go to the state tournament, if not more than that. And obviously, South Range, they're going to continue to be good. They're moving Mr. Markulin. He retired, bringing in a new coach this year, and going to be keeping that tradition going on. Austintown Fitch, the Stankorb kid, he's back. He's predicted to be a state placer in Division I. So, I mean, I just think it's a lot of the same teams that we've been talking about. As far as the smaller schools go locally, for me, I'm interested to see how that Jackson Milton team does. They really started to come on last year with a lot of younger kids in the lighter weights, and they're back with another year of experience. They've got a great coaching staff. Coach Wiedenthal, he's a great guy. He's really does a nice job with his kids. I know that the community there really likes him, and he's put in a lot of work. It's good to see a program like that starting to inch up and get better and better. I'll be interested to see how they do. And of course, Garrettsville, Garfield, Louisville, all those teams will be good as well.
We always like to keep our eye on United too. I know they have a really good program outside of your conference, and you see them a lot. They're going to be starting their season on the same day that our first broadcast is. They'll have a matchup with West Branch. That should be fun. Those are 2 programs that we love to keep our eye on that are always that seem to have good wrestling programs in West Branch and United as well.
Yeah, Coach Kenny Beaumare's there. He's done a great job. We've talked about him several times on here. He's come on the broadcast. He's got the number 1 ranked heavyweight in Division III, Dallas McCracken. Dallas made some upsets last year and got into that state finals match. I think he won a couple matches by a point or in overtime to get there. I know he's focused. I saw him during football season. He slimmed down. He was pushing, the heavyweight limit at 285. He's probably around 265 now, which is only going to make him better in the third period and better in those overtime matches. I really do look for him to become the first state champion at United and the first state placer as well. Kenny and his staff have done a great job, and it's really great to see how well they're doing. He has great numbers every year. He has a great staff. His junior high numbers are always good. And I really think that this Dallas is going to he's going to be somebody that everybody's going to watch, because it's fun to watch a big heavyweight that can move. When you get a heavyweight that is big, he's athletic and strong, everybody wants to watch and see how he does. So he'll be one for, I think that YSN will want to do some coverage on this year.
And another thing to point out, Gary, we see more and more programs, a couple more this year, add the girls program to their slate because they're getting more girls involved now that it's OHSA sanctioned and there's an OHSA girls wrestling tournament. We're seeing more programs add girls wrestling to the fold. Talk about that growth and how happy you are to see that just 2 years into it being a OHSA sanctioned, sport.
Well, the state of high school sports, it's different than it used to be. You're seeing some small school basketball teams not being able to play 4 quarters of JV ball because they don't have enough bodies to go around. Boys and girls, it's happening. And wrestling's not immune to that. I think that we've done a good job as a sport to keep the numbers steady the last few years, but the numbers did dip some. in the 2010s and whatnot, and it's starting to inch back up and level off. But I think a big reason for that is the girls wrestling. Girls wrestling is growing every year. More and more states are sanctioning it as an official sport. You're seeing growing interest in it. Last year was the first year for the state tournament in Columbus. It was in the same arena as the boys' state. It was great to see. There's a lot of more and more girls every year participating, and I don't expect to see it shrink anytime soon. And hopefully, if the boys stay steady or even grow, the girls will do the same, and hopefully they'll need their own arena someday.
Yeah, I know Salem is one of those programs that added the girls wrestling program, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 girls wrestlers out for their team. So congratulations to the Quakers and the Lady Quakers for adding a program to their schedule. And we wish everybody the best of luck, Gary. When we bring you back next week, we're going to talk about the schedule. We'll talk about the weekend. You said that weekend is obviously the first one for tournaments. We have a couple of dual matches that week as well. So when we come back next week, we'll start to have guests, of course, like we did every week last week as well. But we thank you so much for episode 1, kind of like a coach's corner and a very appetizing season preview of wrestling. It's great to have you back. We're going to have a long season. Fall sport, winter sports is probably the longest calendar season that we have. And we're excited to have you here on it for the whole winter. And we'll see you again next week.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Talk to you next week.
All right, Gary.
Thanks,
Gary Altizer, the big man, the wrestling guru. We are going to have him every Wednesday here on Running Point at 1 o'clock until the end of the wrestling season. Scotty, so good to have season 3 of Wrestling Wednesdays come back to us.
Always. I was chomping at the bit for this. Last week, I was a week I asked you if Gary was coming on, so happy to have him on once again today. And it's always fun to just come up with questions, pick his brain. Always a good time.
You also know, speaking of Wellsville, obviously he's the wrestling coach down in Wellsville. The Wellsville girls got their season started off with a win last night against Lordstown, 21-13, the final score. That's a perfect segue, Scotty, to get us into the Burnett Pool Spas and Hot Tub scoreboard on ysnlive.com. This is a great tool for you fans, whether you're at one of the games or you're watching one of our broadcasts. Either way, you don't want to look away from your screen or your game for too long. The YSN scoreboard is a quick and easy way to get live updated scores. We have a great team behind the curtain that is working very hard on making sure these scores get up to date live, so you don't have to wait until midnight for final scores to come in. You just pop in and you'll see what the score is and where in the game it is. And it's brought to you and presented by Burnett Pool Spas and Hot Tubs. We had 6 games happen last night in girls basketball. Let's go over the finals. Warren JFK started off down 17-2, and then they came all the way back and they won this game pretty convincingly, 66-53 final score over Badger. A good bounce back after a slow start for Warren JFK. As we said, Wellsville got the win over Toronto last night, 53-13, the final score there. Big win for Wellsville. They were probably last year's, Scotty, most improved team on YSN. You know, you look at them from 2 years ago to last year, very big improvements from their girls basketball program. Last year, they had the most wins that they've had since, I think, 2014. We did the research. A lot of frustration in that program up until last year. They bounced back last year. They got a good season. Bug Thompson goes from the boys to the girls, takes over that program, and a good start in his era as a girls basketball coach at the Tigers. 53-13, they beat Toronto, and they get the win. McDonald was able to get the win over Wyndham. Final score there, 45-42. They hold off the Bombers. A late comeback attempt from Wyndham, not close enough to get McDonald. 45-42, the final score in there. Sebring got the season started with a win over Lordstown, 21-13, the final score there, an 8-point win for the Trojans. Heartland Christian and Liberty got together. Heartland gets to win 53-41, the final score for that one. Lisbon and Malvern got together as well. Malvern barely gets to win over the Blue Devils, 42-36, the final score there. That is your scoreboard. I know not a lot of games on a Tuesday, but we have a good slate of games tonight on Wednesday. Me and Scotty will be back. We're going to see what's on Scotty's mind, and then we'll preview the night of basketball on the network on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens.
Live here outside the Mahoney County.
On air, online,
Wednesday afternoon weather update.
Very dangerous.
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
Craftsmanship to us is 60 years of pride and dedication.
Passed down from generation to generation.
The hardwood floors that your kids take their first steps on.
The solid wood doors you quietly close at night.
The things we create day in and day out are the products that end up turning your house into a home.
At Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, uncompromising quality and craftsmanship built our business.
And it will keep us moving forward for generations to come.
Going the extra mile at Greenwood Chevrolet means we want to take care of the community that takes care of us too.
And we have to work together always. And that's how you stay in business for 40 years.
You know, I love being a helper because when I help somebody, it makes me feel good.
It means a lot that I can make a difference in others' lives.
So I will do everything I can and just being there for them every step of the way.
I want them to know within the first 5 minutes that they could depend on me. That's what going the extra mile means, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day is ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com. Wednesday episode. Anthony Hartwig with you alongside Scotty Mitchell like every Wednesday. And before we get to what's on Scotty's mind, Gary Altizer coming in with the stats. Big stat line from last night's Wellsville game. So even when he's done with Wrestling Wednesday, still coming up clutch. Bella Popplewriter, 26 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 9 steals for Wellsville. Buddy, that's 1 steal away from a double-double, and that's flirting with a triple-double for the first game of the season. That's a good way to start a year for Bella Popplewriter, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, for sure. That's, wow. Talk about a stat sheet stuffer there.
Popping off is Popplewriter. What a great start to the season for her and the Tigers, 53-13 win over Toronto. Scotty, it's time for our weekly segment where we hop inside your brain and try to see what's going on in Scotty's world.
Yeah, as you say, it could sometimes
get dangerous.
It could be a dangerous thing, and not the dangerous that like Baker Mayfield talked about years ago, but not quite that. But I wanted to talk about Poland girls basketball a little bit today, Anthony, and they continue their dominant ways. They got a big win recently. They have a huge game coming up here with Champion, but I just wanted to talk about Poland basketball so far this year. They had a great season last year as well, and it seems like they've really it's definitely they've established that it's a winning culture there. And what I wanted to touch on, like back when I was in high school, even like on the boys' side as well, like there was the teams had an identity and there was a expectation, a certain level of expectation, and they not only went in the games wanting to win, but expecting, and they did it a lot with the press back when I was in high school, and suffocating defense. But what do you think? It was another well balanced attack from Poland last night. Mary Brandt had a really solid game. You also had Ellie Grope and Kate Harrell. They had nice games off the bench as well.
Yeah.
But so with that being said, Anthony, I just wanted your opinion on. I know it's very early in the season, but what do you think? Kind of the identity of the. You know, how with good teams, you can always say, well, their bread and butter is this. They're gonna get you with this. What do you see that as for the Poland girls?
It's defense. It's always defense in Poland. Poland has such a tough defense to contend with because they are really, really good at forcing teams to do things they don't normally do. They usually, unless you have someone special like Cheney does and Alyssa Brown, usually control your best player and keep them well below their season average. Alyssa Brown is the first player to score more than 30 points on Poland since Stationette Harris did it back when she played for Ursuline. That was she's in her grad transfer year this year in college, so that was what 5 seasons ago. In girls basketball when Stationette Harris was able to do that kind of stuff against Poland. Even like Ysn Party for South Range, who put up really good numbers against Poland, did not get 30. So Alyssa Brown coming in as a freshman, first game of the year for Cheney, dropping 31. That's pretty dang impressive. But for the most part, most of the times, 9 times out of 10, Poland takes your best player and really takes them out of the game and holds them well below their season average. They force you into a lot of turnovers. They trap like crazy in the half court. They can press. They'll press for sure. But they're more of a half court pressure defense where they love to trap your wings. They love to force your guards into bad situations. You see a lot of cross court ill-advised throws because they cause teams to panic. It's that kind of stuff, and that leads to easy offense. And I think they're gonna have to do that a lot this year because they did have a balanced offense against Cheney, but a lot of those girls are into new waters this year because they lost so much scoring from a year ago. Mary Brandt is the one player they returned that is a legitimate, proven, consistent varsity scorer. So everyone else is going to have to prove consistently this year they can go and score 8, 9, 10 points every night out. And against Cheney, they did. They had a really good balanced offense. That's got to make Nick Blanche really happy that he got good contributions from Kate Harrell. Sophia Generalovic had a great game. Allie Grope, you mentioned. Eliana Thompson coming in as her sophomore season had a great year. If he can get consistency out of Mary Brandt doing what she's supposed to do, and then a solid 6 to 10 points from other people off that roster, then I think Poland's going to be dangerous. If they're scoring 50 points a game, they're not going to lose a lot because they're not going to be a lot of teams that score more than 50 on Poland at all. So they're always going to be a defensive team. That's going to be their bread and butter. That's what keeps them winning consistently because it's easy to coach defense. You don't have to have talent to be a good defender. You just have to have good athleticism and a good understanding of what defense is. I mean, that's really all it takes to be a really lockdown defender.
So you do a lot of people I've talked to have said it before too. Like a lot of defense is the effort too.
Right. I mean, like I said, like you need to be a girl or a guy that can go and get her own shot from anywhere on the floor. That takes a little bit of talent, a little bit of skill, a lot of hard work. But to be a good defender, to be a lockdown defense, you can. That's why defense is consistent in Poland's program because no matter what the turnover is, you can coach good defense and you can say, hey, be here, go here, keep her in front. It doesn't take as much talent to be a good defender. It's just athleticism and understanding and IQ and being able to listen to what your coaches are saying. I think that's what makes Poland good, because no matter what their overall talent level is, and let's be honest, Nick Blanche has been blessed with a lot of talent too. So I'm not trying to say that Poland doesn't have talent and hasn't had talent during this really good run. He's been blessed with amazing talent on his team. But at the same time, he's lost a lot of talent, and every year he loses talent, they say, oh, this will be Poland's down year. But it's not, because he knows how to get girls to defend the ball really, really well. And as long as you have that, you're going to keep yourself in games. And that's why Poland is consistently winning. After every season, you think, well, they've lost too much. They lost Jackie Grisdale. How are they going to come back from that? They lost Connie Kugris. How are they going to come back from that? They lost Caitlin Brown. You could go, the list goes on and on of players that have been to a lot to them. Sarah Burry, all these players that they lost, and people are saying the offseason, there's no way they're going to come back from that. This is probably the biggest year where they lost a lot of seniors that meant a lot to their offense. Like I said, Mary Brand, really the only player on that team that is a returning consistent varsity scorer offensively. So this year, a lot of people, again, saying, hey, what's Poland going to do now? And Nick Blanche with the answer, hey, we're going to play really good defense. We're going to stop your best player. We're going to keep you from doing what you want to do, and we'll score enough on offense. And that's what they did on Monday night, and that's what they're going to have to do on Thursday against Champion, because this Flashes team is off to a very good start. They're healthy this year. They feel like they were kind of robbed of last season because of their health issues, because of the injuries they had. They're healthy. They're scoring a lot of points. They're going to need that defense. Poland's going to have to play a really good game on Thursday to beat Champion. Scotty, let's transition, because your old buddy Radar brings up a great point. We have a state championship game going on tomorrow, and it might be the best state championship of the whole weekend. A lot of people think it will be. I think it will be too. Archbishop Hoban, Massillon, Washington clashing for a state championship game. I saw this tweet from the Hoban student section, and I want to bring it up because it was really – because the whole storyline for this game is that Massillon, Washington is a premier football team. They're always really, really good. But they haven't won – they haven't gone and won a state championship. They've won the polls back in the day, Scotty, if you don't know, before they came out with the playoff system, just like college football before the BCS. To win a state championship, you just had to win the poll at the end of the season. So if you won the poll, you were just kind of, hey, you were the state champion. And Massillon has a lot of those. But they don't have is an actual go and win it state championship, where you have to win the playoffs, you have to go and win a state championship game. And the last win was in 1970, and the Hoban student section Twitter listed all these things that have happened since 1970, since the last Massillon Washington State Championship. We've had 10 presidents. All the Star Wars movies have come out since they won a state championship. All this different stuff, and it was like, oh, Tom Brady was born and had 20 plus years in the NFL career. So all these things that have happened since Massillon Washington has last won a state championship. Just a little fun clowning on the Tigers there a little bit. But all joking aside, Scotty, this is going to be a magical game. You'll look at the stats for some of these comparisons. Massillon Washington is 15-0, right? Hoban's 13-1. That one loss to St. Ed's in the last regular season game of the year. Massillon scores 40.7 points per game. Hoban scores 33.2. Here's the big key. Points allowed per game. They're almost dead even. Massillon Washington allows 1/10 of a point less on average than Hoban does per game. Massillon Washington at 7.6 and Hoban at 7.7. Everything's even. The offenses are pretty even. Defenses are right there. You look at the way the last week ended for both teams. One, Hoban was in a thriller, right, with Avon, where They were down 14-3. They came back. They led 17-14. Avon missed a game-tying field goal. They had to sweat it out. Madison Washington did not have to sweat it out last week. They won handedly. Their first play from scrimmage was a 68-yard touchdown run, and they pretty much had control of the game from that point on. So you have one team that has kind of bullied their way into the state championship game, and one team that has been tested. I know intuitively, Scotty, you might think, well, the team that has just had a cakewalk, they're going to have the advantage. They've been beating people up all the way to get here. But there's something to be said about teams that have continuously been tested and continuously get through those types of games. I wouldn't necessarily just write this off as Massillon Washington's game to lose because they've been dominating their way through the tournament, because sometimes there is a lot to be said about teams that win close games. Hoban has won close games. They've been with their backs against the wall. They've been there, done that. Nothing is going to faze them. So if they get into a close game situation, you're starting to look at, man, Hoban's really experienced in this kind of football game. And then you look at Massillon Washington and you go, they haven't been tested. Like, props to them for dominating. I'm not saying that I'm not knocking them for it, but they haven't been in the close games. They've been blowing people out. What do? How do they respond if it's 17-17 in the fourth quarter? And they need this drive.
Yeah, it's definitely like, and just from what I've seen and everything I know about these teams this year, and you threw out all the stats and what they've done on the season, defensively too, how close they are. So you would think this sets up to be a real it's gonna be super exciting, and it should set up for a terrific matchup. I think it's gonna be a great game. You would think it's gonna come down to the end, be really close based off everything you just said, Anthony. So yeah, I think if you're Akron Hoban, I mean, you got to be feeling pretty good because they've been through the ringer, they've been battle tested, and as dominant as Massillon Washington has been, and it's like you never, like, I never was that guy that thought like any dominant team in any sport, like, I don't want to say they needed a loss. Like, I never was that guy. Like, I always thought every win you could get is always great. But I do think you need to hit some adversity, and Massillon hasn't hit quite the adversity. So
no.
I think Hoban will be, they're going to be primed and ready. Like you said, even the last game down by double digits, and they were still able to come back and get the victory. So,
to be fair, Scotty, we have seen teams that are just better than everybody, right? Like they're dominating because they're better, and they just keep dominating, and they don't need that adversity in the games because they find ways to kind of produce that kind of thing in practice, or produce that kind of thing, preparing and preparation. My immediate thought goes back to champion softball in 2019 when they run ruled everybody all the way to the state championship. No one scored a run on them, and they literally run ruled every single game, including the state championship that year. But you look at last year's South Range football team, they kind of rolled. I mean, they won, 34-0 in the state semifinal, and then rolled against Ironton in the state championship game. So, sometimes you're just better. You're just having that year where you're better, and you don't need that adversity per se. But what my point is, like, if Hoban makes this close, then you start to wonder, is that an advantage? The fact that Hoban has played in close games, they know how to react to that. They know how to kind of respond to that kind of situation. You don't know. I mean, the first thing that has to happen in that is, of course, is Hoban has to make it a close game in the fourth quarter. But if they do, advantage Hoban, in my opinion. One game you're going to have to watch out for from Aston Washington, of course, is Mike Wright, nose tackle / running back. In the 55-7 win in the state semifinal, he had 2 sacks on the defensive side. He ran for over 115 yards and 2 touchdowns on the offensive side. So he's going to be a player that Aston Washington is going to really lean on both sides of the football. So that's going to be one thing that Hoban has to watch out for. Both these teams have really good offenses, but we've said it before. I threw out the numbers. They've won with defense. So this might be a sneaky lower scoring game than expected, even though both offenses average well above 30 points per game. You might see both defenses shine pretty bright in this one. You might see a lower scoring game than people expect.
Yeah, like what's your for the most part? I know it's a little different every level, but I guess specifically football. Like, do you think more times than not a great defense in your mind? You'd rather have the great defense than the great offense. Like a great defense stops a great offense most of the time. The old adage, defense wins championships. Or do you think it's kind of flipped where, if you have that elite offense, you're never really out of a game, so you can beat a good. I mean, in both of these teams, it's
Both
kind
these teams
of
have both, which is just like
yeah, they have both, so it's kind of moot. But you get to where I was getting at.
yeah, like if you had to pick one, I mean, I guess if I had to pick one, I don't know, you have to score to win, right? Like you gotta. I don't know. You have to have offense, right? Like you need it. I know that the whole defense defense wins championships, offense sells tickets is a fun little cliche, and I think it's true. I think you need a defense to win a championship in almost every sport. Obviously, you don't see a lot of teams with a terrible defense in any sport, any level, just go on and win because their offense is that unbelievably unstoppable. You see some mediocre defenses or some middle of the line defenses, but never like this is the worst defense in the league or worst defense in the country, whatever it may be, and they win the championship because their offense is just unbelievably unstoppable. You don't see that too much. So you need a defense, but on the other end, like it's a hard choice because if I have an offense that can score at any place on the field at any time, I you want that too. You really want that too. I would say defense though. Defense is here's why. There's no slumping on defense. Like I said with basketball, you don't need the talent to play defense. You don't have to worry about the shots going in. To play defense, it's just show up, be athletic, be in the right spots, and talk to each other. I mean, like it's easier to have a good defense because you don't need the talent. You don't need the skill level. You don't need the I don't want to that sounds like I'm trashing defensive players. You don't need the unbelievable how do I put that? I don't know how to word this without offending defensive players. But you know what I'm getting at, right? Like for an offense to succeed, you need the quarterback to make a really good pass. You need the wide receiver to catch it, and sometimes make a really acrobatic pass. If you're a defense, you have to tackle, you have to keep the ball in front of you. You don't need as many things to go right to have a good defense than you do for a good offense. You don't need as many people to do something really, really well at a high level at a really talented pace. Let's just take the Iron Bowl for example, Scotty. Iron Bowl, for example, Alabama 4th and 31. For that play to work for Alabama, they needed a pass that was right on the money. They needed that wide receiver to catch the ball in the corner of the end zone. That's what they needed, right? But for Auburn to stop that, all you had to do was turn your head around and look at the quarterback. And he didn't. He lost his receiver in the end zone, which is inexcusable for a defender. He never looked back to the quarterback. I don't think he ever knew that ball was in the air until the wide receiver went up to catch it. So you look at that. That's kind of an example I would use like that. The defensive job did not rely on this unbelievable pass and this unbelievable catch. Like defense was just, hey, look at the quarterback. You know, you can be a little bit more. It's easier to be consistently good on defense. That's what I'm going to say.
So you're pretty much saying it's not that you don't
Effort.
need
I think
those
Gary
certain
nailed it.
things in small doses, but there's more room for error.
Exactly what Gary said. This is what I'm trying to go at. Defense is about effort and heart, right? Like the effort, working hard, the spirit of a defender. Offense, you need some talent, right? You can't have a really awesome blowing up offense without a little bit of talent on that side. I'm not saying that you can't have an elite. You can have an elite defense without zero talent. That's not what I'm saying. But it's almost a necessity to have an explosive, unbelievable offense. You got to have a lot of talent, and you can have maybe 1, 2, or 3 like elite players on defense and still have a very lockdown defense because you have a bunch of guys that are giving you 100% effort and have the heart of a defender. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
I get what, and I hate to always use like my personal, like my fandom as an example, but Anthony, even the Browns last year, they were arguably the worst defense in the NFL, and then this year with the same players, but it seems like everybody's buying in.
Right.
And they're one of the better defenses in the NFL. So it's a lot of it is about effort and heart.
Right.
Not that you don't need those other things, but
you still need great athleticism. You need the IQ, but it's a different skill set I think you need, and I think it's a lot easier to have consistently good defense than consistently good offense, if that makes sense.
I agree.
Especially like we're talking basketball to start that conversation, which got my mind to that. Especially in basketball, defense is all about effort. It's all about how athletic you can be, and heart. And I know football, there's a lot more technique involved in your defense. So you could argue football, you need a little bit more than just effort and heart to be a good defender, especially defensive line. Like my word, if you don't have good defensive line moves, then you're not going to get through the offensive line. Like, if you don't have good hands, good feet. But there are some positions that it's, it is about just, effort and what you're doing and IQ. Like I think as a safety, you have to be athletic, you have to be smart, and you have to know what you're doing. Like you have to have IQ. But you don't have to have like unbelievable amount of premium gifted talent to be a good free safety, per se. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense.
I mean, if you had that talent, you would be on the offensive side, right?
Yeah, that's what they always say. That's why DBs aren't receivers.
I just alienated every defensive back that is watching Running Point. They just lost all those viewers. Like, oh, it's all in good fun. We love our DBs, we love our safeties, we love our quarterbacks. We like to harp on you a little bit. Scotty, that's the state championship to get back on track. Hoban versus Massillon, Washington tomorrow night in Canton, Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. It is the only game that night for the state championship weekend. Everything else on Friday and Saturday. So they are headlining it with Archbishop Hoban versus Massillon, Washington. It might just be the best game of the weekend. A lot of people think it is. I think it will be. I don't think any other game is this evenly matched. It might be lower scoring than you think. I think the magic number to win this game, 24, 27. I don't think either defense is going to allow more than 30. I really don't. I think it would be hard pressed to see. I would be shocked if Hoban or Washington or Massillon allowed more than 30 points.
Anthony, could I throw out one final quick question?
Do it, buddy.
Here?
You got time.
Over under for you in this game here. Over under 3 turnovers both
Ooh.
sides.
I'm going to say under. You mean like total both sides?
Yeah,
combined?
both sides.
I'm going to say under because I think the defenses are really good, but both offenses have protected the ball pretty dang well. Like, you can stop them without forcing a turnover. I don't think especially hoping the way the last year went, the way the turnovers hurt them. I feel like they've been harping on ball security all week. Like, hey, we can't have what happened last year happen this year in this state championship game. So I'm going to say under 3, hopefully under 3. For all of our sakes. But I still think under as a combined point total, I would say under 50. I think that's fair. And I would think 24 is the magic number. If you score above 24, you're going to win this game. I don't think it's going to get over 30. Those are my opinions.
So we may see a 24-17, 24-21.
Maybe 27. I'll push it to 27. 28. Heck, if they have 29, I'll count myself right. And then 30, I said not above 30. So I'll even push it to saying if they have 30, I'll put myself right. But no one's getting 31.
No Baskin Robbins.
Watching come back on Friday, and it's like a 51-48 game. Anthony looks like a complete moron. Let's go into tonight's scoreboard real quick. Tell you the games that are happening. I know we're a little bit in overtime, but luckily we can't afford to be. We can have some fun on Running Point and go into overtime every now and then. This means Greenwood Chevrolet gets more shout-outs. Shout out to Greenwood Chevrolet. We'll go to a Wednesday scoreboard on Running Point on ysnlive.com/scores. Presented by Burnett Pool Spas and Hot Tubs. Here's what's going on tonight. EBC play starts as Alliance goes to Salem. Lakeview traveling to Ursuline. That should be a fun game between two teams that have played pretty good defense this year. South Range will have to bounce back from losing to United as they travel into a very tough environment at Boardman. Struthers goes to Austintown Fitch. West Geauga is going to go to Howland. Minerva will go to West Branch. And last but not least, Whitcliffe goes to Conneaut tonight. Those are the games that are on our scoreboard. Here are the games that will be on the network and the announcers that won't be there. Tonight we have 6 games on the network. Alliance of Salem will be covered by Luke Davis. Sam Ballast and Jake Nicholas will be traveling with Lakeview to Ursuline. We have DJ Yoakley going to be on the call at Boardman for South Range and the Spartans. Ty Bartell and Brandon Colangelo will be on hand at Fitch for Struthers and Austintown Fitch. Noah Ricks is going to be at Howland for West Geauga and Howland. They're 2-0, the Tigers. And then Minerva and West Branch, I will be in the Warriors Fieldhouse for that one. So those are going to be the games on the network tonight. Make sure to tune in. ysnlive.com/live is where you can find them. Want to also give a shout out to Archbishop Hoban, who is also playing tonight. The girls are on the road. And I'm getting their opponent real quick. They will play at John Marshall tonight at 7 o'clock. So Hoban girls also playing tonight at 7 o'clock on the road at John Marshall. And we will keep an eye on that one as well. We'll be back tomorrow with the recaps of all that action and a full slate of basketball to preview. And we'll also talk even more about the state championship game going on in Tom Benson Stadium in Canton. Anthony Hartwig, Scotty Mitchell signing off. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see you all tomorrow on Running Point, brought to you by